Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this late September, early October edition of Tiger Talk TV. My name is Doug Goodman, and for the next half hour or so, we're going to bring you up to date on what's happening with our Marshall Public Schools. And of course, Tiger Talk is a television program dedicated to keep our community and our citizens of Marshall informed of the events and activities and programs that are happening over the next month or so. And if you do have any questions a little bit later on, we're going to have some numbers for you at the bottom, maybe a website at the bottom of the screen so you can get in contact with our special guest today. And speaking of special guests, once again, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our Superintendent of Marshall Public Schools, Scott Monson. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me, Doug.
Sounds good. We've got a little bit different format for this particular show and going forward because we're at the Marshall Middle School here in the Professional Development Room, or the boardroom, which is about a half an hour or so. We're going to have our regular school board meeting, which happens twice a month. And so we're doing this just before that, and we're also going to have a little new segment called the Tiger Spotlight. And it's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Mr. Bruce Lamprecht, who is the Director of Business Services for the Marshall Public Schools. And actually, Scott, our superintendent, will be interviewing Bruce, talking about some of the things. I think they're going to talk about facilities, enrollment, some of the more current, up-to-date things that are happening here in our Marshall Public Schools. So with that, I think it's time to take a quick cut, bring Bruce on set, and get right to the interview, all right?
Sounds great.
All right, thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Monson, Superintendent for the Marshall Public Schools, and I have the opportunity to welcome Bruce Lamprecht, who's our Director of Business Services, to our show today. And I asked Bruce to come in and talk a little bit about some of the relevant things happening in the district that he oversees and is involved in. So Bruce, before we get started, I know you very well because I have the privilege of working with you, and a lot of people in the community know you as well. But maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and background and how long you've been in Marshall.
Okay, been in Marshall since 1979. Came to Marshall to be the food service director at, I think at that time it was Southwest State University, and worked there for 3 years as a food service director, and then I moved on to the hospitality industry a little bit more, and that was at the Best Western Marshall Inn, where I was the general manager there for I believe 12 years, and then decided to make a career change and move to the school district and started working at the school district in 1993, November of 1993, and have been doing that ever since, and I've really enjoyed the challenge and the opportunity that it has presented. My wife and I have lived, as I said, in Marshall since '79. She is a first grade teacher at Parkside School. So it's been a good run, and certainly have enjoyed our time together, Scott, since you came in July of last year.
Appreciate that. So you take care of the dollars and cents and business operations, and your wife takes care of the little tykes, basically.
I think that's a good way to describe.
That's a good arrangement. That's a great arrangement. Bruce, just a little bit about your responsibilities in the district. What would you say are the major aspects of your job and takes the most amount of your time, if you will?
There are a number of different things that I'm responsible for or co-responsible for with you. I think really some of the main activities that I am involved in are like budget planning, budget and finance, operations and maintenance, food service, transportation, HR, human resources, just a variety of things, a lot of reporting that falls on my plate. I think the Minnesota Department of Education and other agencies just really enjoy having a lot of reports sent, and so work with the auditors, speaking of reports, and just, as I said, a variety of different aspects of the operation, total operation of the school district.
Great. Okay, thank you. Before we talk specifically, Bruce, about some of the things happening with our facilities planning committee, if you will, maybe you can just give us a little bit of a snapshot of our district facilities right now and the different sites and everything. If you're a parent here in the district, obviously you have a child in a particular school, you're familiar with that school and maybe the next one they're going to go to or whatever, but for the general public, what does the Marshall Public School District consist of site-wise?
We have, Scott, 5 sites in the Marshall Public School District, and we'll just start with like you said, the Little Tykes, and that's the Parkside School. That was built and I think opened in 1988, and that houses our pre-K through second grades. And I think there's a total of probably about 580, 600 students that are in Parkside. And then we have the West Side operation, which is grades 3 and 4, and that houses, again, probably about 340 students at this point in time. And then there's the middle school, which is the old high school, which was built, and by the way, I think West Side was built in 1955, or at least the first part of it, and there have been a couple additions since then. The middle school was opened in 1968 as a high school, Marshall High School, and now it, since the year 2006, has housed or does house grades 5 through 8. And class sizes there, or at least the amount of students, probably about 160 students per grade level.
Sure.
And then we have the high school, the new high school, which isn't so new anymore. That was opened in 2005, and again, that houses grades 9 through 12. And then we have one other operation, and that is Maytech, and that is in the, well, it would be for those people that have been around Marshall for a long, long time, in the old Shopco building. And that building is owned and operated now by Customer Relation. It's a call center, the old Schwann call center. And there we have our alternative school, Marshall Technical School.
Okay,
so.
Great, thank you. Bruce, you've been around facilities a long time, obviously, in your role, and also when you were in hospitality. What are some of the major challenges for the district, would you say, when it comes to facilities?
In regards to facilities, I think certainly is the developing priorities as far as how to best utilize our resources to keep them maintained. And you know, those resources certainly involve financial resources, but also personnel, and how you spread the personnel to maintain the buildings, both from a custodial standpoint and from a maintenance standpoint. I think really a challenge that you face really on a day-to-day basis is having enough financial resources to be able to do all the things that you need to do to keep a comfortable environment, a good learning environment for our students. And we have, over the years, tried to develop and continue to have a 5-year plan as far as maintenance goes. And we try to follow that as best as we can. But of course, when we go through the budget process, it just seems like a lot of times there are other priorities that come into play, and some of the things get set back, you know, like doing roofing projects. That's not a real exciting thing to do, and the general public probably just assumes that our roofs are going to be in good shape and that we're not going to have any issues. But they become well aware of those when we start having leaks in our roofs. And so again, we try to put that on a budgetary timeline, and it doesn't always work out that we get it done when we want to get it done, but eventually we try to address all the different needs of a particular building and location. And while I mentioned location, I also want to talk about the grounds. That's another big aspect of the maintenance and upkeep that we do throughout the school district. And I don't know how many acres we have, but it's fairly significant, and we have certainly one full-time person that works year-round in regards to keeping our grounds up, and then we have a number of other helpers that, especially of course in the summertime, with mowing and upkeep and trimming of trees and so on. So that is another big part of buildings and grounds and the maintenance of both our outside and inside facilities.
And I think a lot of times people see the outside of our buildings, and then you're much more familiar, along with others in the district, admittedly, with the how do you staff for each building, where do you put kids, how do you fix roofs, boilers, just different things like that. That's no doubt a big job, having done that for several years.
Oh yeah, and certainly the maintenance of our HVAC, you know, heating and ventilation and air conditioning. so that we have good comfort levels both in the summertime and spring and especially in the winter with the winters that we do have in this part of the country. And of course that's a financial concern also, and one of the things that we're continually looking at are how can we do a better job of providing a good comfort level at the same time trying to be very efficient in our operations as far as expending electricity and natural gas to achieve those goals. And so we're always looking at what are potential energy conservation measures that we can do that don't impact the climate of our buildings, but at the same time will impact, in essence, our bottom line as far as, as what we spend to maintain a good comfort level in each of our building locations.
Sounds great. So, Bruce, let's transition a little bit into this facility study that our district's been going through for many months. What can you tell us about it? What was the driving force behind establishing a committee and really starting to take a look at our current facilities?
Well, it really has been a process already going on for a couple of years, and I think really the first indicator why we needed to take a look at our facilities was because of our class sizes and some of the overcrowding that we've experienced, not just at one building, but basically at all the buildings, and where we were running out of space, trying to convert one area into a classroom and do this and do that to make sure that we were meeting all the needs. And so as part of that, we had a study from Hazel Reinhardt, who used to be a Minnesota State demographer, and she came forward with a report in regards to where we were currently at, which we knew anyway, but where we were headed over the next 10 years. And through this report, this enrollment report, if you want to call it that, and that's something, of course, I think you're well aware of, that we really look at enrollment on a weekly basis and checking to see where things are at and what our class sizes are. And the report came forward that and she presented already back in January of 2014, so it's been a year and 3/4 since that report came out. Anyway, it showed that we were looking at having enrollment growth of 16 to 22% over the next 10 years. And so that really has kind of prompted this facilities studying phase that we're currently in and going to be closing out here shortly. And we have experienced over the last 2 years, including this year, this fall, higher than projected growth from what Hazel had put in her report. Our numbers are exceeding that. And we're certainly stressing and straining at all of our locations as far as trying to accommodate the necessary class sizes that we need to have. And so that has been part of our emphasis, or a great deal of our emphasis, on moving forward at taking a look at our facilities and what we might need to do to address those issues, which are good issues. But right now we are full to the max.
It is very full. We know that. We talk about it frequently. Again, everybody, have the pleasure of having Bruce Lamprecht, our Director of Business Services for the Marshall Public Schools, here today, and talking about facilities and enrollment and a variety of different things. So Bruce, the district established or asked for people to serve on a facility study committee, and that committee met 7 times. What's your impression about what took place during the 7 meetings, and what can you share with our audience?
There certainly was a lot of good conversation, a lot of thoughtful and insightful discussion that took place over these 7 meetings. We also did a survey of the community, looking at what are the priorities that we need to address. Items like safety and security, certainly, and maintaining smaller class sizes, especially in the primary level, and not having an overload of students at one location. As example, maybe building on to Parkside. Would that be a consideration? And how many more students would we have on that location? And is that really practical or doable? And I think it was a very honest conversation. It was directed by ATS&R architects. Dave Maroney was the primary facilitator of all the discussions, and everyone really had the opportunity to express their opinions, but certainly listen and find out the information and what's driving the growth that we're anticipating, that we're already seeing, but also anticipating in the future, and how we can address those needs. And so I believe a lot has been accomplished, and certainly as we move forward, there's a lot more that needs to happen. But at our last meeting, which was about a week or so ago, I think, yeah.
Yep.
We came to a recommendation that would go forward to the school board, and I think by and large the work of this facilities planning committee or group has been accomplished, and now it's going to be in essence in the lap of the school board to make the next decisions.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about the enrollment being the driving force behind the whole facilities study piece. The committee obviously spent a lot of time on that. I believe we're 140 students, roughly 130 students more than what we had last year. So we've seen the need.
That's a big number.
Yep, in excess of what we anticipated. What's built into the direction that the committee is going to ultimately has rolled forward to you and I to make a recommendation to the school board? What does that consist of?
It really consists of, I think, impacting all of our locations for one thing. Looking at, I think maybe the main big change would be the recommendation to move forward with a new building, with a new elementary building, which would be at this location, at the middle school location, or at least at this point in time. And just keep in mind, all of this stuff is very preliminary.
Right.
There's nothing carved in stone at this point in time. So, you know, things can change, and they do change, and they will change. But that would be building a 1 through 4 building here at the middle, or no, excuse me, a 2 through 4. Yep. 1 through 4 was another one of the options that we talked about, a 2 through 4 grade level building here at the middle school, and then converting the Parkside location into a pre-K through 1 location, and planning on the expansion, at least to a certain point, of all of the preschool programming. I don't know how many people are familiar with all the discussion that took place at the legislature this past 2015 legislative session, and really a priority of the governor is to expand the whole preschool involvement throughout the state of Minnesota. And we certainly have run into a situation over the last number of years that we just don't have enough space and programming to meet the needs, and that is only going to increase as we move forward. So that at Parkside is what we're looking at is establishing really a preschool pre-K program, and then grades K and 1 also included at Parkside.
So pre-K 1 at Parkside, new building 2 through 4, 2nd through 4th grade somewhere at the middle school site. We've got some room to expand, if you will, in terms of land. How about at the middle school and the high school? What changes would happen?
Middle school, there would be some additional classrooms put on at the middle school. There would be the renovation and repurposing of the pool area, which since I believe 2006 has set and not being utilized, so it would be repurposed into probably either a multi-purpose gym or a gymnastics area or whatever. So again, additional classrooms at the middle school. And then looking at the high school, we would also be adding some more classrooms, mainly in the area of science and tech ed and career tech programs, and that would be out towards the back of the cafeteria is where that expansion would be located. And when the high school was built back in 04-05, there was a special designation as to where we would look to expand the high school if need be, and so that would be ready to move forward. So The other piece, and we haven't talked about West Side, would be to take West Side offline and look to sell it to investors or whomever, either the building as it stands, or maybe take the building down as a possibility, and then that whole acreage out at West Side and have that developed into something else.
Okay.
So that's a major change. We really, the facilities planning group really concentrated on West Side throughout that whole process, and a lot of discussion and a lot of opinion. One of the things that we had was a study done in regards to just getting West Side up to speed, its infrastructure up to speed, and putting dehumidification, air conditioning by and large into that building. And all of those projects to, in essence, redo the boilers, put new boilers in. The boilers are original at West Side, back from 1955. And we had an estimate of the cost of all of those projects at, I believe, $11.4 million. So the decision was made, or the recommendation was made to, as I said, take that offline and have it become something else for the community of Marshall.
Okay. I think we've just got a couple minutes left, Bruce. Let's bring this conversation to a closure, if you will. So growing enrollment in the district, which to some extent or a large extent started the process of looking at our facilities. A committee has met and come forward with a recommendation that would include converting or doing some things at Parkside to make it a pre-K through first grade site, sort of that early childhood concept. To close down West Side, do something different with it, that remains to be seen.
Yep.
And again, all this is just a recommendation yet, nothing's been finalized. Yep. To build a new 2nd through 4th grade elementary school, likely located somewhere on the middle school grounds here. To do some renovating and remodeling, if you will, to the middle school to better accommodate the growth that is already happening and that we anticipate happening. And then to do some adding on to the high school also in response to the growth that we've seen there and to accommodate that growth. A lot of people are going to want to know, what are the financials of it, Bruce? So what would you share about that?
The preliminary financials or estimate for all of those parts of the project, the total project, is around $39 million.
Okay.
$39 million, and for a home, which an average market value home of $151,000 and change, that impact or tax impact, again on a preliminary basis, would be about $160 a year.
All right. And from here, Bruce, so we've got a recommendation that the Facility Study Committee has brought forward or asked us to carry forward to the school board. What happens next?
What happens next? Well, in fact, this evening, September 21st, at the school board meeting, we're going to have a little bit of informal discussion in regards to the Facilities Planning Committee and their preliminary recommendation. And then on October 5th, at our usual school board planning work session, we will have more of a formal discussion and the possibility of the school board being asked to approve or whatever this recommendation. We'll probably have that fine-tuned a little bit more at that point in time. And if the school board would say, yes, we want to move ahead with this recommendation, then of course we need to have the architects really very much fine-tune what the recommendation is going to be, and then come up with an exact dollar amount, or at least as good as they possibly can get it. And then we would be consulting with our financial advisors to look at tax impacts. We have on a preliminary basis, but more of a finalized basis that would go out to our taxpayers here as the process moves forward. And we would look to the possibility of a bond referendum election to be held either in March or April.
Okay.
And so that ultimately would be the timeline based on, actually we would be starting with the March or April bond referendum election and then move it backwards to make sure that everything gets accomplished, because all of these plans will need to be turned in to the Minnesota Department of Education for review and comment for their approval. So all this stuff does in fact take time, and the development of a ballot and making sure that everything is kosher as far as the state of Minnesota is concerned needs to be done right. So, but again,
it starts with the school board at some point in time, like you indicated, likely on October 5th, making a formal decision about the recommendation from the Facility Study Committee, and then from there it kind of cascades into a variety of different things that need to happen. And certainly information will be disseminated when or if the board makes that decision.
Absolutely.
And we understand how important that is. So, Bruce, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
Again,
Enjoyed it.
This is Bruce Lamprecht, Director of Business Services for the Marshall Public Schools, and I'm Scott Monson, Superintendent. If you have any questions about anything that Bruce and I talked about today, there is a pretty extensive part of the district website, facility study information, a lot of variety of information available. You can also give us a call at 507-537-6924, or you can email me at Scott, scott.monson, monson at marshall.k12.mn.us. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to this late September, early October 2015 edition of Tiger Talk. Again, with me is Scott Monson. I want to thank Bruce Lamprecht, Director of Business Services for Marshall Public Schools. Just did a great job on our Tiger Spotlight, which we will be featuring each and every time we do a Tiger TV talk show. So, as we wrap up, and I know our time's short, Scott, couple quick updates. I know, we got Bruce's and all the facilities, great information. I know we know there'll be more coming out. But maybe from the superintendent's perspective, how's things going with you, and anything else besides what we just visited about with Bruce?
Well, things are going well. Our principals and our staff and our students and parents and everybody involved, I think, really helped us get off to a good start of the school year. Like anytime you start a school year, there's a few hiccups, and we're seeing some of those, primarily maybe a little bit in our technology area. We're expanding that, to the point of where next year we'll have every student, 1st through 12th grade, will have either their own device that they can take home or one that they can use during the school day. And as we transition out of things that you and I are used to, like books and more to electronic resources, we're learning a lot, and we have staff working really hard at that. But it's exciting, yet it's challenging. Other than that, we just continue to watch our enrollment, and that really grew. I think it was about 60 or 70 students more than what we anticipated. Which is good. Marshall and Southwest Minnesota growing from not just a school district perspective, but a jobs and industry and construction perspective, and all the things going on. As frustrating sometimes as the construction can be, trying to get to different places, that's also a sign of growth. So I think things are going well, and like I said, our staff have worked very hard to get us to this point. Hopefully it'll cool off now a little bit, and fall will actually get here.
Sounds good. And of course, our school board has been working hard and will continue to work hard. And you probably want to thank all of those people that were on those. Are they done now as their job, or?
Yeah, we intentionally designed the facility study committee process to be. We kind of had shot for 6 meetings, and it ended up being 7. And like Bruce talked about, those folks did a really good job. I thought, there were perspectives that were shared that I hadn't thought about before, and just ideas, and everybody was coming at it from how can we make this happen. And there were times when we didn't all agree, but yet we're able to come together at the end and say, we think we've got some really good options that meet our highest priority needs. Safety and security, future learning, class sizes, so on and so forth. But what's the best for kids, and then taking into account sort of the financial or fiscal responsibility that we also have as a public school district. And I think the plan that we're going to roll forward meets our needs. It's exciting. It meets our needs in the future, not just now. It's exciting, and it's going to be financially feasible. And the facility study committee members, like you said, Doug, greatly appreciate the work that they did and everything that they contributed to the process.
Sounds great. Just one last final question. since school's been going, of course, pretty much every weekend, our fall activities program has been busy with football, volleyball, Pursuit of Excellence. What a wonderful event this last week. And any final thoughts on our extracurricular activities?
You know, our kids are lucky, number one, because we have a lot of opportunities for them. We have, number two, outstanding advisors and coaches, very committed, and I would say they also we need to remember the parents and all the people that donate and volunteer time and everything to make everything happen. You know, when you look at the Southwest Minnesota Volleyball Challenge, and then, like you said, Pursuit of Excellence, and everything that's going on in our community, and the number of people that it brings here, and it's exciting. So we're very, very blessed when it comes to those types of things.
We sure are. And again, we're very blessed to have this opportunity here through Studio One to have this edition of Tiger Talk taped. And then also for your viewing, you can go to Charter Channel 180 if you have a Charter subscriber, or you can go to VAST 17. That's where you can view this program. Or if you want to go online, you can go to www.marshallstudio1tv.com and actually watch this show at any time, 24 hours a day. And of course, we're also in a few minutes going to start our school board meeting, and that now is actually going online live to the world. So we're pretty excited about some great new opportunities with Studio One. So I want to thank them for being here and being a part of this once again, at least once a month edition of Tiger Talk, Tiger TV, and to keep everybody up to date on what's happening with our Marshall schools. So Scott, Superintendent of Marshall Schools, I want to thank you very much for again being part of our guests and our new show here on Tiger TV. And my name is Doug Goodman. I want to keep you and our viewers updated on what's happening with our Marshall Public Schools. And if you do have any questions out there, Scott, one last, how do they get a hold of you?
Probably the best way is call our office, which is 537-6924, and just ask for me or Tricia. And one way or another, we'll hook up whoever that person is with who they need to find. So,
sounds great. Thank you very much once again for watching, and stay tuned for additional programming here on Studio One TV, and Marshall TV, Tiger TV is just a great way to keep updated. Thank you again, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Good evening.